What is gerrymandering and why is it at the end of the day inevitable? First things first, what is it? Gerrymandering is where you are redrawing districts within a state to give your team, Democrat or Republican, an advantage. Now, what are you getting an advantage for? Why do you want the advantage? How do you redistrict? Each state, when you are a registered voter, you get a vote for the president every 4 years, senators every 4 years, and each state gets 2 senators. So regardless of your population, you're going to get 2 senators, and you get a vote for them regardless of where you live in the state. Now, each state, depending on their population, gets at bare minimum 3 House of Representative members, all the way up to, I believe California has 52. You can fact check me on that. Senators vote on stuff. House of Representative members vote on stuff, so both of those are pretty important. Obviously, senators matter more because there's less of them, but at the end of the day, both matter. You can't really get anything done with just one chamber. Now, what are these states doing? So people say gerrymandering. Well, what is that? The goal of gerrymandering, depending on which party you're in, the goal is to take said percentage of the vote you have in a state and get more representation than you rightfully deserve. I put rightfully in quotes because what is a rightful percentage? So, for example, a state like Wisconsin, the closest state in the 2024 election, it went to Donald Trump by 1%. So they have 11 House of Representative members. And in a state that close, you would expect it would probably be 6-5 Republican to Democrat, or it would be maybe the other way, 6-5, because once 50-50, depending on where you draw the districts, you could get a 6-5 Republican or a 6-5 Democrat, and both of those would be plausible, maybe even a 7-4. But that's not even the case. And in a state like Connecticut, which is a Democratic stronghold, they have 6 House of Representative members, and all 6 districts voted blue. All 6 of their representatives are Democrats. 35% of the state voted for Republicans and Donald Trump. So if you're one of the 35% of people in Connecticut, you have 0 representation when it comes to the House of Representatives. Now, 35%, the clean math would say that the Republicans in Connecticut deserve 2 House of Representative members. The Democrats deserve 4. Now, is it going to be that simple? Is the math always going to slice that way? No. Because there are going to be some districts where one side has, a 90-10 split, and then the other district, it's a 51-49 split, and they both end up having 1, but the side with the 90 and the 49 have significantly more votes. So it's not always going to, even in a perfect world, if someone that was completely independent was drawing districts, it's not always going to be super accurate in terms of representation. But obviously, we can see Republican states are extremely overrepresented, and Democratic states are extremely overrepresented. If you look at any state, they are squiggly lines all over the place. I mean, they're going up, under. All they got to do is connect them. I mean, it's like a kid drawing on a piece of paper. I mean, these don't even look close. It is clearly, no one is arguing that both sides are gerrymandering. Anyone arguing that, anyone that is grandstanding and saying that the situation is being discussed because of the Texas, and they're forcing a gerrymander, which generally it happens every 10 years. Texas wants to do it sooner. I don't have any legal precedent to say whether that's fair or not. I can't really comment on it, but both sides are doing it. Both sides are saying the other side is doing it worse. Now, at the end of the day, you would probably come to the conclusion that, well, why don't we just stop gerrymandering? The issue with, why don't we just stop gerrymandering is it's not really possible. Regardless of what state you have, someone has to draw the map. And in each district has to have an even amount of roughly an even amount of population. So if you have, for the sake of math, this isn't literally the math, but if you have a state with 10 million people and you have 10 House seats, each square, a square would be the cleanest shape, would get 1 million roughly voters. The issue is it never works out like that. You can't just go in Wyoming and just draw square lines and say, okay, we did it. We just drew 9 squares and it was perfectly even. Population is centralized in Democratic cities, which complicates the process because obviously the Republicans want to have all of that city be one district because the Democrats will win overwhelmingly. And then the Republicans want to win a bunch of close races throughout the rest of the state. Democrats want to do the opposite. They want to draw out the cities. They want to take a little sliver of the city and then get a big chunk of rural area. For example, Gavin Newsom in California, he believes he can draw a 52-0 House Representative map. And is it possible? I would say no. I saw some of the renderings for this. I don't think it's going to work out that way. But a state that voted 40% for Donald Trump, and with other Republicans voted a little bit less, but 30 to 40% for the Republican, could be in a situation where they are getting 0% potentially of the vote. Same thing in Wisconsin. Same thing in I mean, it's going to get messy regardless. And at the end of the day, like I said, it was inevitable. It really is inevitable because the Democrats are going to draw it favorably for them, and the Republicans are going to draw it favorably for them. Now, there is one thing that can backfire, and here's where if you're losing hope, you're like, man, this seems super corrupt, which it is. Here's the one thing that you're not factoring in. For we'll go with Gavin Newsom, for example, because he's trying to draw the 52-0 map. When he tries to draw that 52-0 map, what he's doing is he's taking districts that are 70-30 Democrat to Republican, and he's turning them into 52-48 Democrat. Because obviously you have to switch up the map, because a Republican won this district and then a Democrat won these two. So you have to shape up the map and take some of those Democratic votes and put it in the Republican area, which means that both of those two that were Democratic strongholds are now Democratic leans. So you went from 2 guaranteed Democratic seats and 1 guaranteed Republican seat, which is generally fair representation for that state, to now you have 3 Democratic leans. Now the issue with that is if the Democrats have a bad year, if in those districts the Republicans run amazing candidates, they can take all 3. So that's kind of the risk you play. It's not as simple as just, we're going to gerrymander and it's just a win. It's a risk because you can't make them too close. Because if you make them too close, situation in Wisconsin, if before the midterm the Republicans implode, all these close Republican districts, they centralized all of the Democratic vote in 2 districts, and then the other 9 remaining, they have a slight edge in. Well, what happens if the Republicans do poorly, and you go from getting, in a normal map, on a bad year, you got 11 House of Representative seats, you go from getting 3 or 4 to 0. So that's the risk you play. When you start to finagle the numbers and you start to kind of tweak things and try to maximize your expected representation, you risk it coming back on your face in a big way. So it's going to happen. There isn't really any... I mean, somebody's got to draw the maps. That's kind of the issue. That's the gist of what I'm getting at. Is it unfair? Yes. Is it corrupt? Yes. Are they getting the representation they deserve, the citizens in all these states? No. But who's going to draw it? Because either a Republican or a Democrat draws it. And you could say, okay, well, we're going to get an independent to draw it. Excuse me. An independent can draw it. Somebody's still going to get the advantage. If 50% of the state votes for Democrats and 50% votes for Republicans, you are going to have, especially if it's an odd number, obviously, one side is going to be overrepresented and one side is going to be underrepresented. But even if it's an even number, if it's, you got 50% of the state's Republican, 50% is Democrat, and you have 10 seats, it's still tough to draw a map that would get each of them 5. It's just too complex. Like, there is not a single person that maybe you could plug it into an AI formula and crunch all the, because you can't just look at a map and say, okay, well, here's how we make it fair. You can't do that. You would have to run thousands of calculations. And then it's also a projection, as I mentioned, because it can backfire. Well, is it going to be expected? Are the Democrats going to have a blue wave? Are the Republicans going to have a red wave? Like, even if you try, there is never a way where you can make it truly fair.